Another 3-goal plus win for Barcelona in the Liga sounds like good news to me. For context, Barcelona has now beaten 4 of the bottom 5 teams in the Liga in the first 6 matches. And yes, that does include Sevilla, unfortunately at this point in the season. But hey, catching Sevilla when they did. But hey, that's just some good fortune. And I'm not too concerned about that stat either. You can only play the teams in front of you on your schedule. And so far, other than the Rayo Vallecano hiccup to start this season, Barcelona are doing exactly what they're supposed to do in the Liga. You win your home games, beat the teams expected to be in the bottom of the table while rotated, and leave the league-deciding games to the ones against your closest rivals. And since Barcelona is on the top of the table for at least the next 16 hours, I would say Xavi has kind of checked all those boxes, and he did it today in front of 85,000 more fans at the Spotify Camp Nou. So things are looking pretty good right now. With that said, let's go over it. The 5 headlines from Barcelona's 3-0 victory over Elche. 1 is rotation for rotation's sake. There were games last season in the fall when I would look at Barcelona's lineup and I'd say, if Memphis Depay is not the main man tonight, then Barcelona won't get any points. Fast forward to this season, and Memphis Depay find themselves 6th on the depth chart for Barcelona's forwards, and Xavi has the option not of having him be upset in the stands or whatever, but having a player bought in and being able to rotate him in the Liga because they want to keep him fresh too. Xavi could have gone with either Ansu or Ferran Torres, both who saw action later in the game, and 2 players in desperate need of form. But instead, Xavi went with Memphis on the left, because he's not just rotating just for the players on the field, he's rotating for those on the bench as well. Last season, I would ask every game that looked to be decided, why is Pedri and Busquets still on the field? Part of me still thinks that about Pedri. He is 3rd in total minutes behind Ter Stegen and Lewandowski this year, but Busquets is all the way down in 9th and got a full 90 minutes of rest today. I know I sound a bit incredulous that Barcelona has an actual squad with actual rotation pieces for Xavi to use, but I can just say, having been through last season, that's a luxury that you don't get every year. I'm glad to see that Xavi has kind of some semblance of the squad that he wanted. 2 is Frenkie de Jong, man of the match, ? Shrug. Speaking of Busi on the bench, that meant that Frenkie de Jong got to be in his stead for the entire game, to start in place of Busquets and basically play as the pivot. And I'm not sure, as I said, the whole man of the match thing, I'm not sure about that. We shouldn't overthink that Lewandowski scored 2 more goals, more on him in a bit. But Frenkie de Jong was just about as good as he could be in this game. He was 8 of 9 on his duels, had 2 shots on target, hit 3 long balls, went 95 of 105 on his passes with 5 interceptions and 5 tackles. Those stats aren't that great. He did lose the ball 14 times as well, but you watched the same match I did. Frenkie de Jong clearly today at least passed the eye test. He looked good, moved the ball well side to side, and was an important part of carving an Elche side that even with 10 men decided to settle into a very low block and, as they say, park the bus. Now some of the detractors will say, you're at home, Elche have 10 men for 75 minutes. How could you possibly not play well? Well, there are other players on the field who arguably didn't play so great. And Frenkie de Jong arguably went out and had one of the top 2 performances in the match, along with Lewandowski. And that's a positive sign too, because we're not looking for Frenkie de Jong to overtake Busquets in the starting lineup this season. That's not how it's going to be. That's not how it's going to happen. Because his salary and his natural fit as a pivot, they're questions for next season. Certainly next season. But a rotation of Busquets when it matters and de Jong against the other 30% of the Liga teams, that certainly works for this year, and that is what I'm most concerned about. 3 is Self-Inflicted Elche. As I kind of said, detractors and those who aren't going to say this is a good result for Barcelona are going to point directly at Elche completely shooting themselves in the foot in that first half, and basically on the road against Barcelona, a place that they have not won since 1974. You can't really shoot yourself in the foot like that. But they played with 10 men for 75 minutes. Frank Kessié, it must be said though, was fortunate that he wasn't sent off earlier. I think that was a yellow. I don't know how much he knew about that swing back that picked up the first yellow. I don't think the second one deserved a second yellow. It's not really a red card offense because that's what a second yellow is. I know by the rule of the law, it's supposed to be 2 yellows. Each yellow is a separate infraction, but always has to be harder than the first yellow because it gets a red. That's kind of the unwritten rules of football, right? That's kind of what it is. But Kessié, unfortunate for him, he's going to be the one Barca player, I think, who looks after this match and says, I don't think it was my best showing today. I don't really think I gave my best. But, hey, came off at halftime because Xavi couldn't risk it. And I also have to say, in defense of Kessié, really frustrating after you pick up an early yellow to, because they went down to 10 men, have to watch a bunch of players every time you even run past them, especially when physically you're a lot stronger than those players. They just flop and flail along the ground. That can be a frustrating thing for Kessié. So I'm glad that Xavi just kind of got him out of there, can reset, international break, and get him back to where he needs with his head on straight. But for Elche, I think Barcelona got a bit of a gift here. Yeah, the VAR and the goals were helpful. We'll get to that in a second. But this didn't need to go to VAR even. You could see clear as day Gonzalo Verdu pulling Lewandowski down. Frustrating for Elche, certainly. But the tactics were self-inflicted too. I mean, their manager got sent off as well, and maybe he sent himself off because of just how poor it is to instruct your team to play such a high line and try to play such a high offside press against Barcelona when they have those kind of players. You've got to sit in and you've got to absorb pressure and kind of counterattack. Instead, they try to keep things really, really narrow, which was the right thing to do, but they also kept things pretty shallow. As in, everybody was kind of within about 20 to 30 yards, which works for well-organized teams, but Elche weren't that. And so for a gaping hole like that to be in the middle of the field, but Frenkie de Jong, who's not known for his incredible one-touch passing, was able to find a ball on a deflection, deliver it perfectly to Lewandowski, or at least to his path. And then for Elche, they were just going to have to defend for their lives for the remainder of that match in a 5-4-1. So frustrating day for Elche, and I think it does ruin in totality how we judge this match for Barcelona. 4, time to talk about those goals. Let's talk about them. First one comes in transition. Koundé starts the move to Dembélé, well positioned by Pedri, out to Balde, and good cross in for either Memphis or Lewandowski. One of the two could have scored. Lewandowski completely unmarked and scoring from exactly where Verdu was supposed to be. Yeah, we already talked about it. Elche got in their own way, leads to the first goal. Goal number 2, De Jong to Dembélé, to Lewandowski, to Koundé, to De Jong. You kind of get a theme with these two goals. Everybody got involved. When you're playing against 10 men, the way to do it is put the ball on everybody's foot because you have an extra man out in the field to figure things out. And so by moving the ball quickly, side to side, vertically, diagonally, in all these different directions, Elche were eventually going to concede to you their holes. And especially on crosses, when you have a threat like Lewandowski now, it's night and day, right? It's night and day when it came to the last 2 or 3 years where Barcelona really didn't have an answer into the box. They did not have a player that you can trust to just get on the end of these crosses. So when you're playing against 10 men, the way to do it is, as I said, move the ball around quickly in all those different directions and then throw that ball back in the middle of the field when you create a numerical advantage, crashing to the near or far post. And Barcelona were able to get their first 2 goals just like that. Because on that second goal, this is not a compliment to Elche, but they were sitting in and they weren't really pressuring the ball at all. So again, while De Jong to Dembélé, to Lewandowski, to Koundé, to De Jong, it wasn't even one touch at that point with these passes. Then it was Pedri to Balde, pick up pace a little bit, and then Balde was given way too much cushion into Memphis at goals, who held it up well, went with that move he's been using this season. And prior to that, too, Memphis kept losing the ball in 1v1 situations. He had 16 giveaways tonight, that being Memphis, but with that special move he had, got a goal, came on, was trusted by Xavi, so all good things for Memphis, regardless of all the times he gave the ball away. Because for a player that's not totally match fit and is being thrown into a position where Xavi's saying, hey, do your best, get us a result, or then you're going to be back on the bench for the big ones, getting a goal like this and just trying to get it done, that's all I can ask of Memphis. Pedri did almost have the third in the first half, but Lewandowski was way offside. 15 of 16, by the way, on long balls was Pedri today. 5 key passes, 92 of 96 on accurate passes. Just like Lewandowski, I could do a whole thing on Pedri every single match, but that's all I'm going to give you. I'm going to give you his stats there, let those lie. Pedri's just fantastic. Let's continue on. Goal number 3, Koundé and Memphis help make it 3. Koundé splits 2 with a pass to Dembélé out wide. Memphis keeps it alive on the intended cross, and Lewandowski just buries the rebound. Easy for Lewandowski. That said, the stat that you want to know about Lewandowski, 7 goals in 6 matches to start a La Liga campaign. He's just the 7th player to do that in La Liga history. 1947, Eric Chavala from Athletic Club was the first to do it. Kubala did it for Barca in 51. Socrates did it for Valencia in 1953. Di Stefano did it for Real Madrid in 1953. Seminario did it for Zaragoza in 61. Vieira did it for Atletico Madrid in 1997. And for the first time in the 21st century, Lewandowski does it. 6 goals in 7 matches to start the Liga campaign. He has 11 total goals this season already to start the campaign. And I guess that Lewandowski would finish the season with 40. And I think Francesc Tomas, when we did that previous show, almost kind of talked me down. And multiple people said, hey, if he gets between 30 and 35, that's a really positive season. That's a really great way to get the ball rolling. But it's the middle of September, and the guy already has 11 goals this season. So I'm hoping that I'm wrong. And it sounds like all those people that were kind of just tempering expectations a bit on Lewandowski putting the ball in the back of the net. Now, I think the next criticism is the games that he's putting the ball in the back of the net and the opponent he's putting the ball in the back of the net about. But hey, again, you play the teams that are in front of you. If he can score against those big opponents too, boy, he's going to hit 40 or 50 this season. We're already on track. And 5 is Balde Expectations, much like Mingueza 2 seasons ago, where I didn't really know what we were going to expect from him, and he far exceeded expectations. I looked at last season and the season before that, and I kind of warned people with Balde, because Balde for a long time, other than Juan Miranda, has been that big left-back prospect in La Masia. We heard it for years and years, since Balde was a U16 player when he was 14 years old, playing with the Cadet Oz, that he was going to be the next big thing. And I believed it. I watched it. It certainly looked like that at youth level. But the last 2 seasons, it's been pretty rough for him. Really disjointed. And there were times even last year where he wasn't even the first choice for Barca B. Not that Sergio Busquets' decisions were always the right ones. But injuries kept piling up, and I was worried about his progress as a professional, as a first-team footballer. Not even at Barcelona, just in general. Could he catch on? Could he put those injuries behind him? And could he make the most of what is clearly really great physical tools and a good understanding of positional play? But was he going to be able to make the right decisions at a quick enough speed and deliver with enough credibility final balls in the attacking third to really make an impact? And the defensive side of the ball too, which so far there have been no concerns about Balde defending. And the idea that he would already basically unseat Alba and compete with Marcos Alonso in a 3-way fight for minutes is beyond what I ever could have expected. And Xavi isn't just trying to make fetch happen. He's got 3 assists this season, including 2 today, which along with Moukoko of Dortmund, he's in the top 2 in the top 5 leagues in goal contributions for U19 players. So much for not having an end product from Balde. And while I have good weeks and bad weeks, that happens to all young players, the reason why I think that Balde's progress that we're kind of seeing and believing from game to game and week to week, why I believe that that's sustainable is because, no offense, I'm going to bring up a name for those who followed the podcast for a while here, in Nelson Semedo. I always was frustrated with Valverde that a player like Semedo, he was the only one that ever really looked like he had improved a little bit by Valverde, but even then I felt like in those moments I was stretching, saying, well, Nelson Semedo, he's gotten better, right? Because if not, nobody improved under Valverde, no offense. He got results, he won the double, he won the Liga twice, but it just felt like those players just were not getting better. But under Xavi, because he has a young squad, he has young players that do indeed get better if they're on the right path. Eric Garcia, Gabi, Pedri, and I guess you can count Dembele, all 4 of those players and Balde have actually had marked improvements where there are things, there are tangible skills that you can look at and say, I think those players have improved since Xavi took over. And that is nothing but good news. Another cool stat, and I don't know if this is true, but I saw it on Twitter.com, so obviously it must be true. But apparently Barcelona finished this match with an average age of just 21 years old. So while it feels like Lewandowski and Piqué and Alba and Busi, like they're all still there, and at times it still feels like their squad is too old, or there are issues with Marcos Alonso, coming as a 31-year-old to be some kind of savior, Lewandowski 34, whatever. The core of this squad in the future is growing before our eyes and is here already. So heading into the international break with that Bayern loss still on our minds about what that means for the future, I don't really come away with any more negative notes from this win against Elche. Because after years of sweating in matches where I felt like Barcelona should have just taken care of business, why do you sweat in those kind of matches? They easily took care of Elche today. 3-0 at home. Yeah, red card helped them out. VAR helped them out, but that doesn't matter. Barcelona made their own luck, got the result they needed, and more importantly, got the expected result. So my day got to end the same way I expected it when it started. Which is, again, good news for all of us. And as always, we got some content coming out over the international break. Don't you worry. Things to break down, things to talk about. So look out for the podcast as we head into the international break. And as always, until next time, Forza Barca, because we've got a busy October ahead.